Well, everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat Mel. Hey, everybody, Cantonese Cat here. Before I talk about Bitcoin, which I will, before I talk about the how Bitcoin is like the soul and the window of increasing global liquidity, and how I think it might be precipitating a everything rally, I just want to go a little bit about the some housekeeping business here. So, Tesla Tracker, the Great Masby, and I, we're going to have another episode of the Triumvirate of TA tonight. And this can be streamed, and you can see this over at the Triumvirate TA channel. Certainly feel free to join us there. We've been talking about the Everything Rally for quite a few weeks now, even through the crazy, Japan yen carry trade, or whatever you call it. I just see the writing in the wall. I think things are going to go up a lot higher. So I just wanted to make sure you guys join us for the show tonight, 7:30 Eastern. Please feel free to subscribe. We're close to 1,000 subscribers now. Anyway, get to the business here, Bitcoin, right? And what you're showing here is the monthly chart Bitcoin up above, and down here is the M2 Global Liquidity Index. This can be searchable on TradingView. It's pretty easy to find, actually. What it is usually the M2 money supply of the US, Japan, China, and Europe, as well as Great Britain. It's basically the big five kind of summarized together with the M2 money supply, and it basically calculates this pretty nice global liquidity index here. What you're seeing here is whenever you have a big run up of the global liquidity, you're going to have a big run up of Bitcoin. And whenever this slows down, and inevitably it will slow down because of cyclicality, because global liquidity goes in cycles, inevitably when it slows down, you're going to end up having a plateau of global liquidity for maybe a couple of years or so. And when that happens, that's when the Bitcoin correction generally happens. You're going to have things that kind of going down or sideways for a couple of years, and that's what happened last time, right? And then what happens after that, you have increase in global liquidity again, because inevitably there's going to want to start printing money again, and that's just kind of what they do. You have another parabolic bull trend, and then that inevitably would end up with global liquidity flattening for about 2 or 3 years. That's exactly what happened. And when that flattens is when you have this big giant correction of Bitcoin. And it's quite interesting to actually look at the morphology of the global liquidity. Usually, whenever it gets up to the peak, you have a little bit of a bigger dip, and then you have a little bit of a smaller dip, and then it breaks through and it runs, right? Here, this time what happened, you have a little bit of a bigger dip, and you have a little bit of a smaller dip. And right now, we're kind of really broken about the horizontal zone over here, so I think we're going to probably end up having a run up. Now, even after global liquidity has broken out last time, it took about 3 to 6 months for things to really kick up into gears. And so far, we've had the global liquidity really has broken out maybe around May or June or something like that. It's been about 3 or 4 months, and we've just kind of gone sideways and down here a little bit. I do think that we would probably end up picking things up, if not this month, maybe next month, maybe the month after, but by Q4 2023, sorry, Q4 2024, most likely going to end up having a lot more, higher prices for Bitcoin coming. You're also hearing about China yesterday, last night, how they're injecting liquidity. And it's true, they are. They really have no choice. They have either a choice to print a lot more money to try to become they're basically going through their Japanification, if you will, because their economy is relatively in shambles, because they don't have the population growth that goes along with it, and because they also have a lot of youth unemployment right now. Like basically, they're I think the tariffs from 2019 is really kicking in high gears. That combined with COVID, they're just in shambles right now. Now, with that said, something interesting has happened with the Hang Seng Index, because you're really talking about a breakout here of this bear market trend line. You're also talking about Chinese basically just have a lot of news basically saying they're going to have a lot more liquidity injection. And the Hang Seng overnight had just kind of gone crazy. It went to some pretty high levels, and I've been talking about this for a long time. I'm not saying that the Hang Seng is going to go back to all-time highs, and this is a great investment to invest in China or anything like that. No, I'm just saying that all you're looking at is this is a lot of global liquidity injection, including China, that they would have to do to really prevent their economy from just going down in a spiral, right? And they have a lot of deflation, which is going to allow them to really print a lot more money, and the money is going to go to their stock market, and the money is going to go to Bitcoin. A lot of it is also going to leave China, and it's going to go to Bitcoin, right? And you can see that it's really nicely reclaiming the 20-month moving average here. In bullish band is squeezing here to tell you maybe a little bit of a trend change is coming. Again, I'm not saying this is a great investment strategy. I'm just saying that, hey, maybe there's some opportunity to trade here. And if China does well, pretty much the U.S. stock market is going to do well. Like, if you just look at history, there's rarely any period where the Chinese stock market does well and the U.S. stock market does not do well. You're also talking about the monthly also reclaiming the Tenkan, nicely flipping from resistance to support. And right now also reclaiming the Kijun, which we got rejected back in May. And we're finally reclaiming that. So it's probably going to gravitate to like 20,000, 20,600, 700, somewhere around there. I think whenever you have a little bit of an increase in Chinese liquidity, an increase in Chinese stock market, Bitcoin is going to do well. And the U.S. stock market is going to do well. I just, I'm very optimistic about, I'm pessimistic about the Chinese economy, but I'm optimistic about the liquidity injection that's going to propel us to the next leg up higher. We haven't really even hit euphoria stage quite just yet, right? Despite the fact that we've gone up a lot from 15,000 all the way up to like 72,000, and a lot of people really started to pay attention. But this whole sideways move for about 7 months have really just gotten a lot of people demoralized, and you have a lot more bears basically calling that this is a triple top. But like, it doesn't make sense. Like, none of that really makes sense. Another thing too, you look at pretty much if you look at all the Bitcoin cycle. Let me see. You look at all the Bitcoin cycle. This is a monthly chart. I'm pulling out a Bollinger Band here. They generally have this euphoric stage where things just push the Bollinger Band up so far, and there's so much volatility that the lower Bollinger Band gets pushed down to the floor, to the negatives, right? And that happened in the last few cycles. We're no exception. Right now, we haven't really had that. We're just basically saying that there's really not like a euphoric sentiment, euphoric stage quite just yet. Before that happens, even last cycle, you have a little bit of expansion, contraction before the real expansion, right? So right now we have the same thing: expansion, contraction, perhaps before the real expansion to happen. We really haven't had that happen yet. Sometimes all it takes just a few green candles for something to just absolutely look completely insane. And I think we're waiting for that stage. We just haven't really had that quite just yet. But the euphoria hasn't even kicked in yet. There are a couple other things too to look at. One is and so this is something that Micro to Macro has talked a lot about. Something went wrong. What is going on? MVRV Z-score. If I click on that, you're going to see that whenever you have the on the monthly chart here, the MVRVZ score, this is something that a lot of Bitcoin bulls or a lot of Bitcoin analysts, including one of my favorite, Jesse, who is looking at this, and basically pretty much every cycle you top up at around like 5 or so, and you can potentially have a little bit of a double top over here too, And even if it tops around 5 or ish, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to make another higher leg up, right? So I don't think we're anywhere near that. So that's one indicator to kind of basically also tell us that we're not quite there yet. Another thing is also you look at the pi cycle indicator, which is going to be, I have one here with Shark Tank. There's something called pi cycle. Whenever the pi cycle, you have these two moving averages or calculated moving averages, they're seen here. Whenever they combine together, it really kind of marks the cycle top here. And the last one, they really started combining together around like April 2021. I really think that was really like the true top, although we end up making just a little slight higher high after that. I really think that was a true top. Right now, we're nowhere near having the pi cycle top. I guess it's projected right now, maybe around like maybe 2025. But this changes. I've been seeing this changes over the last few months. Sometimes push all the way up to like 2026. Sometimes push a little bit earlier. It really doesn't matter. That's just a projection. This pi cycle indicator was calculated, I think, around like 2018 based on the previous cycles. So I think it did predictively, accurately predict kind of like the last cycle top here around April 2021. I think that's doing a pretty good job. So whenever pi cycle top happens, that's when you pay attention. But that's like nowhere near anywhere where we are right now. You look at the monthly Ichimoku cloud, you can see that right now the Tenkan still serve as support. The blue line still serve as support, right? That's what a bull market does. It pushes price up higher, and we've just been back to support over the last couple of months. I don't think it's that big of a deal, and so far we're kind of holding, and so far it looks like it wants to go higher. The difference, I think, between this cycle over here and I guess if you're looking at this, you can call this like a bull flag, and people might call this a bull flag, and they're like, how can it not break down, right? I guess the only big difference is that we haven't really broken down underneath the Tenkan. The Tenkan continues to be upsloping, continues to serve as a support, right? Whereas over here, we really have kind of broken down, so a lot of momentum has already been lost over here. Here, I think we're just doing our standard bull market, backtesting Tenkan kind of thing. So I don't think that we're really anywhere like near the top of the cycle. The other thing to kind of pay attention to would be the MSTR stock. MSTR is going to be the window to, I think, to what Bitcoin does, because they're basically a leverage play for Bitcoin. Now, if you look at MSTR and you compare that to Bitcoin here, I'm just going to do that kind of a little bit side by side, not GameStop, but let's do BTC USD here. I'm going to take away the moving average, and I'm going to try to line them up together the best I can. And you can really see one thing here that is a little bit different from this cycle to last cycle, which is the fact that MicroStrategy has really topped out around February of 2021. When Bitcoin went ahead and make a couple more highs after that, MicroStrategy never did, right? So really a lot of whales have already been, kind of signaling and saying, hey, we're going to probably get out now because of increased inflation. The Fed's going to have to, raise rates. There's going to be a lot of economic issues. So whales already have exited around here in February 2021. Like, there's no doubt about that, right? And then Bitcoin ended up just kind of making a little bit more of a high here, but a lot of whales already saw the writing on the wall and they already exited, right? So are we at the same similar cycle where a lot of whales are seeing their writings on the wall and they're exiting? No, right? Because Bitcoin actually end up going down here a little bit, but MicroStrategy, you actually have like 6 inside candles to this one over here. It's just basically been a little bit of a nice rectangle over here, right? So there's really no reason to think that this cycle is anywhere like this cycle over here at this spot, because there's still a lot more bullish indication from how MicroStrategy is behaving right now. Another thing too, I think MicroStrategy is a good window to where we are at this cycle is if you look at the monthly Chimoku cloud, you can see last cycle, you can say, oh, what now, like, can this area over here be exhausted like it was over here? I don't think so. The reason why is because you had a bullish cross and you're still above the Tenkan and Kijun. Over here, you actually kind of broke underneath the Tenkan and Kijun, you back tested, you failed. And when you fail to break above resistance, that's when things plummeted, right? Here, you're actually finding support. And right now, it's inside candles, 6 inside candles to this one. Inside candles favor bullish continuation, or actually just continuation of the primary trend, which is bullish. It's been forming higher highs and higher lows ever since December 2022. So there's really not much for me to really get too concerned about here. If matter of fact, if I want to get into a stock with extra money, it does make me wonder whether or not maybe I think MicroStrategy would be a good play moving forward, because it does look bullish to me. A couple other things too, looking at Bitcoin proxies, I'm going to talk about the miners here too. A couple of things too, if you look at Coinbase, what is Coinbase doing? It's been real scary, right? Remember we went from like 280 to like, 140s, it's like it's basically just got cut in half, just a matter of like 6 months. Ridiculous, right? Well, what did it do? It just basically backtested 0.618 Fibonacci level, and it held. Backtested the arc over here. You see how nice the market symmetry in this Gann chart here. Backtested the arc over here and held, right? And it just basically got rejected here from one arc and one Fibonacci level, and it found support bound here and another arc and another Fibonacci level. There's nothing really too entirely scary about it. This is still a higher low, right? This still favors further bullish continuation, and I think there's a potential for it to go up a lot higher, because I see a lot of really positive things going on with altcoins right now. Now, I'm going to get straight to the chase here. Let's talk about the miners. How can I be bearish on the miners whenever they're also kind of got rejected from one Fibonacci level and they're basically coming back down to test another Fibonacci level? How they're basically just trying to get back test the very, very nice 45-degree angle here, which is a very important angle. It's been flipping it from resistance here, and you're basically backtesting the support, right? How can it be really that bearish on this chart when you're looking at some, very, very critical, how do you say it? Some very, very critical support levels over here, right? You have 3 inside candles over here. People would call this a bear flag, but it's always a bear flag before breakout. It's always a bear flag before breakout, right? You're also talking about really clean spark has been, on the weekly chart, has been following a very, very nice moving average here, which is the 100 moving average, has been serving as some pretty important resistance and support zone over here, right? Right now, it just flipped the 100 moving average from resistance here to back to support, and that really hasn't happened for like almost like 3 years, and it's finally doing that. So how can it be bearish on this? Looking at Mara, same thing, right? It's flipped this resistance zone over here from resistance back into support. It hasn't really served as support really since about 3 years ago. So how can it be that bearish? And then zooming out a little bit here, I'm going to turn off the 100 moving average here. Zooming out here a little bit, going back to the monthly, you can see how nicely it found support here at a very important angle and also a very important horizontal line over here, right? There's really nothing scary about it. It's forming a little nice tweezer bottom over here for Mara. It looks nice, right? And also just clean spark looking at, I do think that the month is going to end up closing above 9.22, which is the rising 20-month moving average. I think Mara is going to do the same thing. That's another area of confluence where I think the support is going to hold, rising 20-month moving average, right? Bitfarms, what is it doing? Rising 20-month moving average. And also, what is it doing right now? Back testing the 0.136 here on the linear. And also back testing the arc right here, right? Broke through the arc, back tested arc. These things are bullish. Cypher, what is it doing? Broke through an arc, back tested an arc, right? Relatively bullish. Again, it kind of get a little bit close to 0.136. Cypher is a little bit lagging behind, unfortunately, because it is underneath the 20-month moving average. But we'll see. I mean, short moving average is 3.28. So we'll see whether or not by the end of September we may end up having like a 10% move up for Cypher and end up closing about the rising 20-month moving average. That really wouldn't surprise me at all. Looking at Iron, what it's doing, looking at fib level here on the log scale, it's basically just backtesting the 0.618 after getting rejected at 0.786, forming higher highs and higher lows. Very nice tweezer bottom over here. Wolf, what is it doing? It's trying to break above the 0.5, but it's one of those that are looking very, very bullish. It's just looking like it's like far away from the rising 20-month moving average. It looks like it's just want to ride up a Bollinger Band on the monthly, just keep on going up. It looks bullish. BTBT, this is one of those that I have, is riding up the rising 20-month moving average, is going up higher, right? And I guess you have a little bit of angle resistance here, but that doesn't really scare me that one bit, because usually things just been kind of oscillating around the angle over here. I really do think that the target up here around like $12, $13 is probably going to end up getting hit this cycle, if not higher. So I'm positioned into BTBT. And if you're looking, even Riot is getting close to the arc over here, right? Even Riot is really getting close to some pretty critical support. So I'm not really, like, I'm getting Riot is one of those that are definitely lagging behind. I mean, it's way underneath the 20-month moving average, but it's getting close to like the lower bowl in Japan. So I think that there's a little bit more limited downside, maybe a little bit more upside. But again, I like to at least have stocks that have a little bit of strength. So I don't want to chase. I don't want to like buy the falling knife at Riot, but I do think it's getting close to a lot of very critical support zone over here. Looking like a very, very nice hammer here on monthly. That's also supportive that you're getting to like a bottom zone over there too. Finally, just going to go through HUD 8, and I'm going to talk about a couple other things here before I end the show. HUD 8's reclaimed the 20-month moving average. I know there's a little bit of a resistance here at the horizontal here. HUD 8 was a late cycle bloomer last time. It could also be a late cycle bloomer this time. I think it's also working out as technicals right now. It might end up lagging behind the other stuff, but I do think that this cycle HUD 8's probably going to do pretty decent. And maybe re-challenge some of the arcs up here too. Overall, everything looks pretty good. Now, what else do I want to talk about? This is a chart that's done by my friend, the great Matsby. Matt Hughes 13 is his X handle, and the great Matsby TGM Trading is his YouTube handle too. But you can see how beautiful, like this is his scan chart. You can see how beautiful market symmetry has worked out here from last cycle to this cycle, with just flip resistance to support. The arc has just been flipping resistance to support, so I can't really be not be that bearish here. I just can't be. And again, if you're bullish on Bitcoin, if you're trying to find out the narratives as well as some really great technical stuff, I really do recommend Michael 2 Macro, who is an excellent analyst just overall. Like, he's very well rounded. And finally, I do want to say follow Danny, because even though he can't really chart cryptocurrencies, he is able to chart a lot of the instruments, including MicroStrategies. And I think things are flipping pretty bullish on MicroStrategies. If you're trying to figure out more about his thoughts. We're going to try to get him back to talk to us for the weekend. But do follow him. He has a Patreon as well. He does really great work. Like, he's on there all the time answering questions. I get nothing from promoting these guys, by the way. So I just want to let you know I really truly do feel strongly about these folks being very 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 good follows. Anyway, it's a 20-minute mark. Take care. Bye.